how's higher education and our businesses going to be affected by our troubled economy in these coming elections? Next on Behind the Headlines.
This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenewald, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined by Jerry Strickmatter. Jerry, you are, of course, a member of the Susquehanna Valley Center Board, and I welcome you as co-host. Not as cute as Maura, but it's good to have you on board.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you very much for having us.
Well, you're welcome. We find that the races are raging across Pennsylvania for governor and for U.S. Senator, and we have, we have Joe Sestak trying to say that Pat Toomey is a tool of Wall Street, and Pat Toomey is saying he reformed Wall Street. We have Tom Corbett saying Dan Honorato is trying to help you pronounce his name, and Dan Honorato is saying about Tom Corbett is using a gimmick and saying that he'll never raise your taxes again. What a lively campaign season. What observation on this do you have?
Well, it's going to be an exciting next few weeks for sure, and I think that the people are going to enjoy this election cycle, as we've seen the primaries that have gone. Now we're in the general election. I think it's going to be very exciting, especially here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind. And one of the big issues is going to be education and higher education. And to talk about higher education in this fall season, we're fortunate enough to have Steve Hicks with us. Steve,
hi,
welcome
Charlie.
back.
How are you doing?
All right.
Jerry?
Steve, of course, is the president of APSCUF, our faculty union here in the state system. And we have also joining us Susan Meisenhelder. Susan, welcome.
Hi.
Susan, you used
Thank
to have Steve's job in California.
Correct.
You are the former, you're the retired president of the California State Faculty Union.
Correct.
Okay, well, welcome to Pennsylvania. It's
Thanks so much.
real pleasure to have you here.
Great to be here.
Steve, as we begin this fall and we are in the midst of the campaign, you're going to hear discussions of higher education in Pennsylvania between all the candidates running for the U.S. Senate and for the governorship. What's the current state of higher education in Pennsylvania at present?
Well, Charlie, you listen to the candidates and they'll all tell you that public higher education is a public good. But the problem is they haven't backed that up with funding support over the last few years. And currently there are a whole series of proposals about adding to the mission of the higher education system in Pennsylvania, which includes, of course, the state system of higher education, the community college system, state relateds. But there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about how you fund that because, as you know, we're short of funding. And so it's been interesting to hear people talk about, how much they think of higher education, but time again, they're not writing the checks to back that up. And, Susan's from California, and they're kind of the cautionary tale on all this. So
It sort of leads into the fact that with public higher education institutions experiencing record enrollments, Susan, at the same time, Steve was talking about the cutbacks, the rising class sizes, shrinking class rooms, people not being able to graduate. Is this something that we're just experiencing here in our Commonwealth, or is this something that California experienced as well and other states?
Definitely in California, and from talking with colleagues around the country, I think it's a pretty common thing in most states. We've had terrible economic situation in California, as most people know. We've actually turned away 40,000 students last year because we didn't have enough funding for them. And the impact on quality for those students who are there and the opportunities for them to take the classes they need to graduate have really evaporated.
What happened to those 40,000?
Well, it's a tragedy. These were kids who their whole primary and secondary careers had been told, take these classes, get these grades, and you've got a guaranteed spot in the California State University. They get to their senior year and the legislature says 40,000 of you don't have slots. So we don't know what they're doing, frankly, but they're not in our university. Those students who are still there find themselves either not able to get classes or crammed into classes where they don't even have seats oftentimes. So we're very worried about access and quality as a result of the defunding that's going on. I think it's a pretty common story.
And Susan doesn't mention it because nobody from California wants to, but they've raised tuition or their fee structure over 30% in the last. I mean, you can be more accurate than I am.
A couple of 100% over the last several years.
Right.
An enormous increase.
Well, there's a recent story inside. There's a recent story in the publication Inside Higher Education, and it looks at a European model for the development of degree qualifications and discusses how groups such as the Lumina Foundation are exploring similar degree initiatives in the United States. What do you think of that type of model, Steve? What do you think of that kind of movement? That's a question for both of you.
Well, let me start. The Lumina Foundation has as one of its mandates to increase the number of people who graduate with college degrees by 2024, and that kind of matches up with the Obama administration, which has proposed that we again become the leading degree providing country in the world by 2020. Well, that pushes the numbers, and it seems to put a priority on that. But it comes back to the problem of how do you do it. And part of what's coming out of Europe is the notion of degree profiles that systematize all the universities, put them all on all the same page, and thus create efficiencies. And I think that's I think that ends up being problematic. The United States has the most admired higher ed system in the world, and it probably is admired because of its complexity and the opportunities it provides in a broad range of subjects and the broad training of the people who go through our education system.
Well, as a follow-up, Susan, when we were talking about the 40,000, and there's been a movement to use technology, in order to get the underserved. Now those have been promised, and then they don't have those slots. Are the states, moving to using technology to try to bridge that gap, and what effect is that going to have on higher education?
Good question. Certainly in California, there's a push to use technology and online education, partly because of the budget crisis and trying to get access to more students. The conversation about technology, though, is not very sophisticated right now, and we're concerned that not enough factors are being considered when we make those moves. We had a very tragic circumstance at one of our campuses this past spring. Because of the budget crisis, there was a decision made to put all the students who needed remedial math into one giant 600-kid online class because it was cheaper. The failure rate in that course went through the roof. So it was a very much a false economy, and did not serve those students well. So we think there has to be a more careful look at where technology is appropriate and where it will not in fact save money and not serve students well. So,
but it could be appropriate. I know here in Pennsylvania we've used it with some universities, use it for access for those people, the underserved especially, that can't take a day off of work to go in and talk to the financial aid officer. They can't take a day off to work to do the applications. So
Sure.
Being web-based, being able to do that 24 hours a day, to be able to talk to admissions people and talk to financial aid people, that would be something good. But what you're saying is the problem is, though, then when you take it from the trained educator, teacher, professor, then that's where the problems come in.
Stephen, you look like you were going to answer there.
You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, folks who do a lot of online education emphasize that you have to be very careful about making sure the subject matter meshes with the student population that you have and what you want the students to get out of the course. So, people do believe it can be appropriate in a variety of kinds of settings, but it's not a one-size-fits-all, and it's not a panacea for the problems of funding public higher education.
I think what I was about to say, Jerry, to the question was On the one hand, it can be a valuable tool. On the other hand, a lot of administrators act like it is a panacea. To go to distance education through an internet-based model means the people have to have a quality computer, quality internet access, right. And those things cost money. I mean, one of the concerns we have in the state system here, in the state system in California, and I think the Obama administration has, is giving broad access to a broad economic spectrum of people. And, you know, this kind of distance ed is really a middle class, tool. You see it all the time on people have to be provided computers or broadband or Wi-Fi access at some great economy to make it available. So I know we're in the middle as a system of working on a Northern Tier initiative to provide broadband access to a lot of homes across the northern part of the state, but you know, that access is hard to come by and expensive for some people. So,
well, sort of piggybacking on Jerry's question and trying to go a little further, you had talked about President Obama, and of course he has indeed college completion goals, and you find that there are large organizations, foundations like the Gates Foundation, that have promoted increasing access to college, just what we were talking about a minute ago. What are your thoughts, both of yours, on expanding access to college and the university, particularly to underserved students, non-traditional students? And is technology the only way to go to be able to do that? Two related questions.
Right. I don't think it definitely is not the only way to go. You know, access in California is a huge issue of concern for us. A recent study by our Public Policy Institute of California pointed out that we're going to need 1 million more graduates by 2025 in California than we're on track to produce. So if we're going to produce the educated workforce that we need, we're going to have to expand access. Some of that will require increased funding. There's just no way around it. Technology can be a piece of it, but I think we would be misleading people to suggest just get folks a computer and that'll solve the problem.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the piece that Susan's bringing up here is the quality piece. I mean, we keep talking numbers from Lumina or the Obama administration or the Gates Foundation, and there are ways to increase make up for those 40,000 students and bring them in. But you have to make sure they get a quality education once they get there. You have to be careful that you don't replace quality instruction with a computer. You just, as you said, you get a false economy. I mean, we all got a quality education when we went to school. We want to make sure the students coming in get the same quality education that we did. Because at some point, and I don't want to sound like a Marxist here, but it becomes a class issue. Are we just giving people degrees to get a first level job and we're done, or are we trying to give people access to a different way of life? Most of our students are first generation college students, and they come from families who are very working class, and they're coming to college hoping to get a whole different kind of opportunity in their future. Our students, studies indicate, change jobs 10 times between 18 and 30. You can't train them for one job to give them a quality education. You have to train them broadly so that they can move from job to job easily and be able to have more opportunities than just being the first assistant manager job they get at Walmart. So I think this is a big concern with the the Obama administration wants to win the degree awarding race, and that's fine, but let's make sure that the degrees we award are worth something both to us socially as a country and also to the people who have them, so that they don't have to keep returning to school, spending more money. And again, it becomes a false economy. You got a 4-year degree, but now you have to come back 3 times.
In our